Well, hello there. This lesson is for parents and caregivers on protective capacities, presented by Messiah Lightburn, your boy. The learner objective is to increase knowledge of protective capacities as parents and caregivers. So by the end of this lesson, you will be able to define protective capacities, identify three protective capacity categories, list and describe three or more behavioral characteristics of protective parenting, and list and describe three or more cognitive characteristics of protective parenting. And last but not least, list and describe three or more emotional characteristics of protective parenting. So the essential question of today is, what are protective capacities? Does anybody know? Can somebody tell me what are protective capacities? Protective capacities are personal and caregiving, behavioral, cognitive, and emotional characteristics that specifically and directly can be associated with being protective to one's young. Protective capacity are personal qualities or characteristics that contribute to vigilant child protection. So it's ways about yourself that enable you to protect your child. In other words, protective capacity are personal qualities and characteristics that contribute to vigilant child protection. That's right, vigilant child protection. So we're going to dive right in to these behavioral characteristics, which are specific action, activity, performance that is consistent with and result in protective vigilance. Controls impulses, sets aside own needs, takes action, demonstrates adequate skills, adaptive as a parent, and has a history of protecting. These are some behavioral characteristics that if you can say that you can recognize in yourself, then that you have the qualities that make up a protective parent. That you have the capacity to be protective if you're able to control your impulses, to set aside your own needs, you feel me? To take action, demonstrate adequate skills, and be adaptive as a parent and have a history of protecting. These are behavioral characteristics which are specific action activity, performance that is consistent with and results in protective vigilance. That's right, protective vigilance. So, diving into these impulses and why it's important you need to control your impulses and have this behavioral characteristic. So this refers to a person who's deliberate and careful, who acts in managed and in self-controlled ways. People who do not act on their urges or desires, they not just responding to just anything they feel or anything they hear. These are people that do not overreact as a result of outside stimulation. These are people who think before they act. They don't just do something without thinking. They think before they act and they are planful. That is what it means to control your impulses. And this is an important behavioral characteristic that you need to have to be protective as a parent. Control your impulses. That's right. All right, now moving on to the next slide, we're going to be talking about the behavioral characteristic of taking action because you have to be able to take action to be protective now. You know what I mean? This refers to a person who is action oriented as a human being, not just as a caregiver. You feel me? I'm talking about people who perform when necessary, people who proceed with a course of action, people who take necessary steps, people who are expedient and timely in doing things, and people who discharge their duties. Because you have to be able to move. I'm not talking about nobody that's just sleeping in the bed or that's lazy, that's always procrastinating. Because you got to be expedient and timely when you have children that you're responsible for. And you have to be physically able to take action. And when I say physically able, I'm referring to people who are sufficiently healthy, mobile, and strong. Okay, because people who can move quickly, you got to be able to move quickly if you got a child and they running out to the street and you got to go and catch them. So say, for example, you got toddlers who may dart out, you know what I'm saying, towards the water, towards the pool. What you going to do? You just going to let your little baby just go, You know what I'm saying? Drown in the pool? No, you got to be able to move with some action. You got to be able to, like, you know what I mean, take action. I'm talking about people who are able to physically manage a child's behavior, because children go through different stages of development, and sometimes they just like to just dart out. You know what I'm saying? That's why you have to be able to manage the children's behavior. So people with physical disabilities to effectively deal with dangers. That's what I'm talking about. People with physical abilities. You have to be you have to be physically healthy, mobile, and strong when you're in a caregiver. And if you don't have this characteristic, then this is a capacity, this is a characteristic that you may have to strengthen, that you may have to put some focus on. Maybe you have to start going to the gym and getting more mobile, you know what I'm saying? Because if you're going to be in that caregiver role, it's very important that you're able to take action. All right, yes, sir. So we still diving in with this behavior characteristic of taking action, because you have to understand you have to be assertive and responsible. And this refers to being positive and persistent, not being negative and inconsistent. I'm talking about people who are firm and purposeful. I'm not talking about people who are unstable and ain't got no goals. I'm talking about people who are self-confident and self-assured. Because you have to know who you are as a caregiver. You have to be assertive and responsive. And I'm talking about people who are secure with themselves and their ways. You got to be confident. You got to be secure, because you have children looking up to you. You know what it does when you have a child looking up to you and you insecure? It makes that child insecure in their ways. I'm talking about people who are poised and certain of themselves. You have to be assertive and responsive. I'm talking about you got to be firm and strong in your ways. You got to have the adequate energy. You know what I'm saying? You got to have I'm talking about the personal sustenance necessary to be ready on the job of being protective. Because caregiving is a job. Your role is to provide and protect. Do you recognize your role as a caregiver to protect? That's what we're talking about. You have to have the sustenance necessary to be ready and on the job to be protective. I'm talking about people who are alert and focused. I ain't talking about somebody that's just, you know what I'm saying, like a day school in their ways, you feel me? Nah, man, you gotta be alert. You gotta be ready. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about people who can move, who on the move, who ready to move, and who will move in a timely way. You feel me? For real, I'm talking about people who are motivated and have the capacity to work and be active. For real, and be active. You know what I'm saying? Because you have to have the adequate energy to be active, man. And we talking about taking action. If you can't take no action, if you ain't got the energy, if you ain't got the sustenance, you know what I'm saying, necessary to be ready, you feel me? You have to, I'm talking about people who are rested or able to overcome. Like people who, but yeah, man, when it comes to taking action, you got to use resources to meet your basic needs. You know what I'm saying? This refers to knowing what is needed, getting it, and using it to keep a child safe. You got to be resourceful to know how to go out there and get the resources for your kids. You got to be able to take action. And if you lazy, you lethargic, you don't know how to, you know what I'm saying, overcome obstacles to achieve your goals, then maybe you need to sit down and analyze this behavior characteristic within yourself if you're a parent. You feel me? Because I'm talking about people who get people to help them and their children. They don't sit there and be in their feelings because they got too much pride to ask for help. No, man, you need to be able to be resourceful to meet the basic needs of your kids, man. And you need to be able to use community and public and private organizations. You know what I'm saying? You need to be resourceful. You need to be knowledgeable. You need to know where to go, what is needed, and how to get it, and how to use it to keep your child safe. You feel me? I'm talking about people who will call on the police or access the courts to help them. You know what I'm saying? You a female, you in the house, your man whooping up on you in front of your kids. You know what I'm saying? What if your kids stepping away and your kids get hurt? What, you ain't got no family members that can come that you can go and stay with? Are you going to call the police to access the courts to help you to get you an injunction or something to protect you and your kids? You know what I'm saying? You stand with a man that got anger problems. You don't have a child with a man that's domestic. Or you a man and you got a woman that's beating up on you. You know what I'm saying? You need to be able to use basic community service. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's a shelter, whether it's for food, you know what I mean? Whatever your situation is. The moral of it is, the point, you need to be resourceful to take action. You know what I mean? To meet the basic needs of you and your child that you're responsible for taking care of. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So we gonna keep on diving in with these behavioral characteristics, you feel me? And we're gonna be talking about setting aside your own needs for your child. This refers to people who can delay gratifying their own needs, who accept their children's needs as a priority over their own. Now, what does that mean? That means that you put your kids before yourself. That means if your kid's hungry and you hungry, who you gonna feed first? Well, if you set aside your own needs for your children, that means that you're gonna feed your kids first. Because, man, listen, people who do for themselves after they have done for their children. Okay, that's what it means to set aside your own needs for your for your children, for your kids. I'm talking about people who sacrifice for their children, people who go without just to provide for their children. I'm not talking about people who selfish, who gonna satisfy their own needs, who gonna do what they want before they make sure that their kids straight. You a selfish individual and you don't set aside your own needs for your kids. And your caregiving capacities is diminished because you don't got the ability to set aside your own needs. And you need to do that. You feel me? I'm talking about people who can wait to be satisfied. You know what I'm saying? They don't just go and just meet their own needs first before they make sure that the needs of their kid and their kids straight. I'm talking about people who seek ways to satisfy their children's needs as the priority, man. As the top priority. I ain't talking about like third, fourth, fifth down the list. No, you need to have your kids up top. Ain't that right? Yeah, you need to have your kids up top. You need to have your kids the top priority. If you ain't got your kids up here, you feel me? And you somewhere up here above your kids, then you not setting aside your own needs for your kids. And you tripping. And you need to go and sit down and reanalyze what your role is as a parent and as a caregiver. You know what I'm saying? Because your job, what you need to be doing is putting your kids first. You need to be thinking about your kids, your children. Because your kids ain't asked to be in this world. Straight up. So yeah, we still going in with this setting aside own needs for your kids because this refers to people who adjust and make the best of whatever caregiving situation occurs. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to make the best out of what you got around you. People who are flexible and can adapt to these situations, to life circumstances. Just because a situation stands don't mean that your position don't change. Your job is still to provide and protect for your kids. And your job is still to make sure that your kids is straight before you straight because your kids ain't asked to be here. Your kids is dependent on you. I'm talking about people who accept things and can move with them. I'm not talking about people who just get stuck and, you know what I mean, just be over here in la la land like, oh, I don't know what to do. Oh, somebody help me. No, listen, you got to be able to be flexible and adapt, and people who are creative about caregiving. You got to be able to use what's around you. You got to be able to use your mind and think. Yeah, people who come up with solutions and ways of being that is new, of behaving that's new. You know what I mean? If there's a problem, then hey, that's a great time to use your mind, great opportunity. You know what I mean? To come up with a solution and a new way of doing things that's needed and unfamiliar but more fitting. Because that's how you adapt and that's how you be flexible. You know what I mean? To meet the needs of your kids. And if you really, you know what I mean, fulfilling your role, then that's right. You're going to be creative. You're going to be coming up with solutions. You're going to be having these different, you know what I'm saying, unfamiliar ways of doing things if you adapt into your situation because everybody's situation is not the same. Everybody got different circumstances, you know, but the role of a caregiver is the same. And it's to be able to have the capacity to protect your kids. That's right. Because your kid, it depended on you. They can't protect themselves.